Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Christine, and I'm here today to talk to you about making a bigger impact for breastfeeding families. I have been really thinking about how to help people understand why it's so important for people from so many backgrounds, from so many places, from so many professional experiences, and of all ages and geographic regions to get involved in the work of spreading good information about how lactation works and how people can actually meet their own goals. And I want you to know how much your voice is needed and how you can transform your passion into informed advocacy for families, because what we really need to be working toward are informed and supported lactation experiences. So welcome to this very quick webinar. It won't take too long to get through the information I want to share with you today, and we'll get started right away. So in this webinar, I hope to show you, or I'm going to show you, how you can make a bigger impact for breastfeeding families and why your unique voice is needed in this work. And I'm speaking to you even if you don't think that I am. I am speaking to you with no desire to ever go into the healthcare field or become a lactation care provider. And I'm speaking to you who already works in the healthcare field and isn't sure they really want any additional certifications or trainings. And I'm speaking to you with what you feel is limited education and experience in life, or you who think that your voice is too small to make a difference. This webinar is really for you. So do yourself a favor while we go through this quick webinar, turn off all your distractions, see if you can get everything around you to be calm and peaceful so you can pay attention. It won't take very long to get through this information, so I just want to make sure that you're able to focus while you're here with me and really hear what I've got to say for you this afternoon. So I know that you feel passionate, and you might feel passionate about lactation because you had a wonderful experience and you want others to have that. You might feel passionate because you had a terrible experience and you don't want other people to go through that. You might feel passionate because you are very invested in science and how the human body works. You might be super interested in and fascinated by the process of human lactation. So all of these things are leaving you feeling really passionate about making sure that people get the right information. You also probably feel a little overwhelmed if you're not involved in the field, or even if you are. The training, the education, the certifications, it can all be a lot to understand. It can be a lot to put together if you're trying to enter the field from the outside. And maybe you're feeling like there's really nothing for you if you're not looking to enter the field, but rather just to find some additional information about lactation that you can use in your everyday life with the people that you know. And you might feel a little bit out of place. You might feel like, who are you to be bringing this information somewhere? Maybe you feel like you don't have the voice for this. Maybe you feel like you don't know that many people who might need this information. I definitely can understand that, and I know where you're coming from. You might feel like, how can you possibly make a difference from where you are? Maybe you work in a completely separate field, but you've learned about lactation journeys because you've had one of your own or someone close to you has, and you see people maybe in your workplace who are struggling with their lactation journeys. Or maybe you've heard about all of the news stories about lactation accommodations or paid family leave, or all those things that have to do with employment law that also involve new parents. They involve lactation and what people need when they return to the workplace. Maybe you're looking for something that's going to give you a little bit more context for that type of information, but you're not really sure where your place is in all of that to make a difference or even to put information out there into the world. What I do know is that you're seeing people around you, or maybe even your own breastfeeding experience, being sabotaged, whether that's through bad information that they're receiving, through other people making comments or statements that really feel discouraging to people. Maybe you have seen people really have a hard time and face obstacles that you just can't understand how the science of that works, and you'd love to know exactly why those things happened and if those are the kinds of things that we're working in this field to prevent. I know that you believe that people deserve better, and most people want the best for all the people around them and the people that they care about, whether those are your coworkers, your neighbors, your family members, your friends. You want people to have better supported lactation experiences. You want them to find that when they approach lactation care providers, they receive good information and they receive helpful, useful assistance with what they need, because you believe that people deserve better. And you really wish that you could help somehow, but you're just not sure how. So that's where you are right now. I can tell you that you can have a greater impact, and that really starts with having good information. The knowledge that we have about how lactation works belongs to everyone. Every new parent deserves to be surrounded by information and people that will support their ability to raise healthy children. What I mean by saying this is that sometimes it feels as if the knowledge that we have, the information that we have figured out and have learned through scientific experimentation, through anthropological research, all the information that we have about how human lactation works, it belongs to everyone, not just the people who actually work in this field. But there really are two levels of lactation education out there. There are prenatal breastfeeding education classes, which are meant basically for expectant people and their partners to take when they are expecting a baby, and the kind of information that they would need to actually do that, to actually go through the lactation experience themselves. And the other level is the kind of information that healthcare providers and lactation care providers need. So you've got information that is very narrow in scope, that is meant for parents, and then you've got information that is expensive and can be hard to access, that is generally only marketed and advertised to healthcare providers. So those are the two things that are pretty much available. It can be really hard to find something that's sort of in between, especially if you're a person who does not aspire to become a lactation care provider. Maybe you already have a job in the healthcare field. Maybe you work in a totally different field and you love your job, but you really want this information. It can be really hard to find where it is. It can be difficult to access it, and it can seem expensive for somebody who isn't really looking for a training to do this work, but is more looking for some continuing education that's going to make their life better. So we know that being familiar with the science of human lactation is a really solid foundation. Of course, it all begins there with having the right information and making sure that that information is unbiased and that it's updated and that it's not influenced by commercial marketing. But the other thing we know, and I've put here and but, and that doesn't make any sense, so I apologize for that typo. Knowing how to communicate the right information about human lactation is really how you learn to begin making an impact. It's how you improve the impact that you're making right now. If you are a healthcare provider, or if you are a lactation care provider, learning the kinds of effective communication skills that work, because this really is a topic that does tend to have issues with how it's communicated. So there are ways to do this that are appropriate. There are ways that are effective. There are ways that are just going to work better. So that's the kind of thing that it can be missed. Just knowing the information is one part, but knowing how to give that information to other people is a huge second part of how this works and how you can really make an impact. So when you have this passion inside you, when you have felt deeply that you want other people to have better, wonderful experiences through lactation, you have something valuable to say. You have an experience that is meaningful. You have a story to tell that people need to hear. So I know you're ready to say something that's valuable. One thing we know about the communication about how lactation works, it doesn't do any good to simply go about shouting things about breast is best or benefits of breastfeeding or things like that. Those are not examples of ways of communicating about lactation that are not effective. There are much better ways, and those are the kinds of things that you're going to need if you really want to be able to make an impact, whether that's on just a few people that you know, or people that you can influence through the work that you do, or people that you care for as a healthcare provider. Your voice matters because you know exactly how to speak to the people you know. The people who are in your circle, whether again, that's your coworkers, your friends, your family, you know how to make an impact on them because you do that every day. So imagine what you could do if you had information about lactation and those people trust you and find you a credible source of information. They understand that your motivation is out of caring and that they mean something to you and that you're bringing them this information to be helpful. That can have such a greater impact than if they're just hearing that from strangers or who they think of as health authorities. It can really mean a lot to somebody to hear this kind of information, this kind of advocacy, this kind of communication about lactation and why it's important when they're hearing it from somebody who is close to them or reminds them of themselves. This is why your unique voice matters, because who you are and who you know are very unique just to you. And those are the types of people that you can influence the best, and you can expand that circle from where you begin. If you have some personal experience with lactation, you've been through this journey, whether the journey lasted through one feeding or one day or 1 week or 1 month or 1 year or beyond that, if you have personal experience, then you also likely have some biases about how it works. So you might have your own experience and story about how it worked for you or how it didn't work for you and what happened along that journey. And this kind of training that I'm talking about here, what we're talking about with the Lactation Training Lab, this is the kind of thing that we've got a built-in way of helping you to sort through those personal biases about how lactation works so that you can truly understand the science and develop effective communication so that when you're talking to others, when you're making your impact is coming from a place of information, and it's not coming from a place only of personal experience. There has to be 2 levels to what you're talking through, and you don't have to have any experience yourself in order to make an impact in this way. But if you do, you really need to know how to best use that experience for the best, for good, as you're communicating with others to make an impact. You can make a greater impact and really channel your passion into advocacy by learning in a context-based environment like the Lactation Training Lab. So what I've done here is put together this training experience, this education experience, where it isn't just about facts and it isn't just about techniques to communicate, but everything that we learn and everything that we go through together involves engagement and discussion, because there's so much about what we do in the lactation field that has both a historical context, it has an anthropological context, it has a scientific perspective that needs to be understood. And as we go through all of this information, we have to take all of those things into account. We can't only look at things from one angle, we have to use multiple lenses to examine how each thing happens. Great example of this is when talking about starting solid foods. It's extremely important to know when it's appropriate to introduce solid foods to babies and exactly how to do that and what kinds of foods they need. But it means more when you also understand how other marketing influences have actually shifted the way that most people do this practice at this time. It really helps to get that background of how that happened, what exactly happened, why people are doing it a different way than what health authorities are recommending. So when you get this context-based learning, you understand things from a different perspective, and it helps to both sharpen your passion and make sure that you're always still feeling that passion about people deserving better information than what they're getting. But it also helps you to be a better and more effective communicator, because you really understand why people don't know the information or why what they know does not match up with what the science actually says. So this context is super important to being able to become an effective communicator. So I'm going to pause for a second here. I'm going to challenge you. So now that you've heard all of that information, I want you to think about this for a minute. How will you feel the next time you hear about someone that you know who is struggling through their lactation journey? Are you going to still feel frustrated and overwhelmed and like you don't exactly know how to help, feel a little bit helpless and unable to help them? Or are you going to feel like, oh, wow, I know about that? Or are you going to feel like, oh, I understand why this person isn't hearing that information. Here's a way that they might be able to. Are you going to keep yourself in a place where you feel like you aren't able to help others? Are you going to expand your horizons so that you can feel confident the next time that you hear someone struggling on their journey? So I know you're here because you have this passion. You are ready to make an impact by ensuring that someone, and that someone is you, is out there advocating for better lactation experiences because you know that people deserve that. Maybe you're seeking another purpose. Maybe you're a healthcare provider who knows that lactation is important and you'd like to have a little bit more information that you can include in the care that you already provide to your clients and patients. Maybe you're seeking a purpose because you aren't currently out in the workforce working away from home, but you know that you have a voice that matters and that people can hear, and you'd like to be able to put good information and encouraging information out into the world. And you love to learn. You wouldn't be watching this webinar if you didn't love to learn. You wanted to know more about what I wanted to say here because you love to learn. You're interested in how the human body works. You're interested in how lactation works. Or maybe that's not the part that interests you the most. Maybe what you're interested in is hearing about and really thinking about how commercial influences have shaped infant feeding practices in our country. Maybe you're more interested in hearing about the history of infant feeding practices in our country. Maybe you really are interested in how the global market shapes infant feeding practices. So you definitely love to learn, even if I don't know specifically exactly what that is right now. We're going to touch on everything that impacts lactation through the Lactation Training Lab. So you've got a couple of options here. Now that you've started really thinking about this, you can keep going where you are and feel like you don't have a direction or a purpose in your passion for lactation advocacy, or you can follow a logical roadmap. So you are invited to the Lactation Training Lab, which is a brand new membership experience that I've put together because I felt that putting together a course was too restrictive and too limiting for me as an instructor. What I really wanted to do was put together something that was going to be dynamic, always changing and always getting better for your benefit, something where I'm able to be flexible and to move the information and the learning process around what everyone in the group really needs at that time. So this is what the Lactation Training Lab really provides for you. Every month, there's a learning topic. We're going to take a really deep dive into that. So we're going to learn about the science and the data and the research, and we're going to talk about how we know what we know. And we're going to do that through things that you can read and things that you can watch, like videos and Facebook Lives. I'm going to provide you with relevant links to this information being provided by others so that you can start to build your sense of where credible information comes from when it comes to human lactation. You're going to have a way to organize that learning. You're going to get printable resources that you can use in your own daily life, in your practice. If you're a healthcare provider, the kinds of things that you might need to print out, like a checklist or a worksheet or a guide to how something works in lactation. We'll talk through a case study or more as we work through, because some of the people in the group are lactation care providers, some are healthcare providers doing other kinds of healthcare work, and some people just know people who have been through experiences that pertain to that month's learning topic. Where I'll provide you with advocacy connections, groups and organizations, as well as individuals that you'll want to know. If this month's topic is your absolute favorite, you're so fascinated by it and you want to stay connected with what's happening in terms of that particular issue, you'll want to know and who to follow. And all of this will be accomplished through discussion in your exclusive members only Facebook group, where only members will be. This information and this content will not be available anywhere else. There will be little hints and there will be little tips that you'll see elsewhere that will be public and that will be free to anyone in the whole world. But this really deep dive and this really focused look at all of this information and all of this content, that's going to be just for you as a member. Only you'll be able to access that. And you're going to have two places where you can actually access that, both in the Facebook group as well as on another learning module platform that I use. So I'm not special. My mother would disagree, but she's my mother. But I'm not special. I really was just like you when I started out and when I took my first lactation training course. I was passionate and frustrated. I was participating in a breastfeeding support group as a breastfeeding mother, and I was watching people around me get horrible information from other healthcare providers. I was listening to their stories of how people in their own families were sabotaging their breastfeeding experiences. I was watching people cry and not have great experiences because they were having unresolved health issues that no one was listening to them about. And most of all, I just felt really, really passionate about the fact that in my own personal breastfeeding journey with my first child, I had received really neutral information about what was the difference between whether my child was breastfed or whether she only had formula. I received very neutral messaging. I did not receive any information that I could actually use about how to do either one of those ways of feeding. And I was so frustrated that that was something that people were expected to either just know or to figure out. And I really did want some of this training so that I could help the people that I knew. And I really didn't have any intention of doing something professional with it. It wasn't something I ever thought about. I didn't even really know that there was such a thing. I didn't know it was a thing, right? So I really took this course because I wanted the information, was passionate, I was frustrated, I loved to learn. I still love to learn, and that's why I'm doing this, because I know that through this experience, you're going to learn a lot, and so am I. I just really wanted to have good information, and I wanted to know how to talk to people about breastfeeding, because what I found was when I talked to people about my personal experience, a lot of people had bad reactions because of their own experiences and because I wasn't communicating effectively. So I wasn't able to give them the information that I thought that might be helpful for them. So here's the thing. If you join this group, if you become a member and you do the work, if you participate and you engage in the conversation in the Facebook group, you're using the content and you're going through this information and you decide you want to cancel, there's not going to be any penalty for you. You are going to keep the resources and the knowledge that you've collected. You're going to have connections to people you didn't know before. You're going to have, where we talked about, you're going to have connections to organizations and individuals who are doing advocacy work on the issues that you're thinking about and you're passionate about. So you're going to have information, you're going to have resources, and you're going to keep those. You're going to hold on to those, and you're going to be able to move on if that's what you need. But I do have a feeling that if you're getting into this group, you're becoming a member and you're beginning to engage with this information and with the people who are here in the group with you, you are not going to want to cancel. There's going to be no penalty if you do, but I don't think that's going to happen. So here's where we come to the point where I have to talk about myself for a second in terms of professional. So I am putting together this information for you from my background as a clinical provider of lactation care in multiple settings. I've worked in hospitals, worked in outpatient settings. So I've done this work in different places. I've done it in the immediate after birth setting. I've done it in the NICU. I've done it in the pediatric ward. I've done it in the outpatient setting. That's where I work now. That is the work that I do on a daily basis, working with families in an outpatient setting every day, talking to people every day, communicating and engaging with families who are going through the lactation journey or who have just completed a lactation journey while they're participating in online social media groups, working with people on a daily basis who are going through this experience right now. I'm bringing you all of my professional knowledge as a recently recertified IBCLC. I am also a member of multiple professional associations, which gives me access to trainings, brand new research, all kinds of benefits and resources that I am able to learn and then bring to you in this group, and my experience in actually training aspiring lactation care providers. So for the past 7 years, I've been an instructor, created a curriculum, and I'm an instructor for a class which trains lactation counselors. Many people have gone through that class, have later become IBCLCs. So I have a lot of experience training people from all backgrounds. Some are healthcare providers already, while others are coming from a place of no formal education beyond high school. Some are coming from education in a completely different and separate field. So I have a lot of experience training people. That actually leads me to one of the things that led me to create the Lactation Training Lab. There have been people over the years who joined our lactation education course to become a lactation counselor. They found at the end that in their personal experience and their personal work, what they needed was not a formal training to become a lactation counselor. What they had wanted was the information and the inspiration and the advocacy work that came from what they learned in the class, but they didn't actually need an expensive training that they had to spend a lot of time taking. And I thought this really would have been what they actually needed. Something that stated their need for information and conversation and connection with others who were interested in the same things, as well as connection to other resources so that they could become advocates and make a bigger impact through what they wanted to do without needing to do all the clinical study that we're working on in the lactation counselor training. So that's just a little story of how this came about. So when you think about it, bringing this professional experience to this group, what you're getting here, the amount of work and time and content that's being put into this group, this is a value of about $497 a month, but it's not going to cost you that. It's going to cost you $24 a month to be a member of the Lactation Training Lab. And to enroll, it's very simple. If you want to memorize or write down that little link right there, or you can scan this QR code. You can look on the Facebook page. There's plenty of places there where there's information about how to enroll, but this is the information right here. So for $24 a month, you have access to this exclusive group and this exclusive set of resources that really are curated just for members and are not going to be available to anyone else. So what you'll do when you go to that link, you'll just fill in some very simple details. I don't even need a lot of your information. I really just need a little bit so that I can get in touch with you. You'll check your email for that confirmation of how to get into both the exclusive Facebook group as well as the learning platform, which is on a platform called Kajabi. And that module looks like this. Once you get into it, you'll get your login information to get in there. And that's where you're going to find a very organized set of content that's already existing. So when you sign up, you're going to have access immediately to everything that's already in there, everything that's already been curated, the conversations that are in the exclusive Facebook group that have already been happening. You're already going to have access to all of that. And one of the things that includes is the entire course for a concept that I created called the first 100 hours. That information is extremely helpful and useful for people who do work in a healthcare setting and need to understand the earliest days of lactation. And it's also a very interesting, different perspective on how to approach that when you are, even if you are not inside the clinical experience. So it's a really comprehensive course that I created years ago, and I've included the entire thing inside of there, in addition to the other information and content that has already been created, as well as resources that have not been released in other places. Those are already inside, and you'll have immediate access to that. This is what the members area in our exclusive Facebook group looks like. You'll be part of that. And one of the things you can see here in this screenshot is that we are setting up units. So when you access the information on the other platform, it is in a nice sort of a linear way of putting all that content in order so that each learning topic is organized and all put together. We can do the same thing inside this Facebook group. So that's what we're doing here, putting those units together so that each month when we have a learning topic, everything that you are seeing on the other platform, you're also going to see here in the Facebook group. So I would imagine that some people might spend most of their time in the Facebook group finding that content and engaging in discussions about that information right there from the group. So again, you'll start at the link, you'll provide a minimum of information, and you will be immediately subscribed, of course, to a list where you're going to get a notification every time there's new content put into the group. You're going to know that. You're not going to have to say, oh, it's Friday, I should go check on my group. You're going to get an email that says, hey, Christine put some new stuff in here. So you'll know as soon as that stuff comes up. So here's the link again, and here's the QR code. So again, it's $24 a month, and you can cancel absolutely anytime, and you keep the information that you've already found and that you've already received, and all the knowledge that you've already gained, and all the connections that you've already made with other people who are doing the same work and have the same interests as you. So I'm hearing that you probably have some objections. You might be thinking, I don't know if I have time for this. Well, the great thing about learning online is that you make the time fit into your life. So if the best time for you to learn something is very late at night when no one else is around, that's when you can do it. If the best time for you to learn is when you're taking your lunch break, then that's when you're going to do it. That's the great thing about online learning. It's very convenient for you to fit it into your existing life and make it work for you. This is not something that's going to take you 20 hours a month. This is something that you'll be able to engage with on your own time. And each month, if you have a month where maybe you don't have a lot of time because you've taken a vacation or gone out of town or just life got in the way and you just didn't have a whole lot of time to engage with that particular learning topic, it's not going anywhere. So next month, when March starts, February's information is still going to be sitting there. You can always go back and review it. You can always go back and start from the beginning. So there's really no need to worry about deadlines or information disappearing. You're always going to have access to that as a member. Another objection that I'm sure that some of you have, it has to do with commitment. And really, I just want you to know there's really no commitment here. If you would like to be a member, you can be a member. And if you would like to cancel your membership, you'll be able to cancel your membership. There's no penalty, there's no charge, and there's no charge to join other than the monthly fee. So you're really making a very low risk investment here. Your commitment is just to yourself that you want to learn this information. And I trust that you are going to get that information from this membership. I really do have a lot of faith that this is going to work for you. How will you use it? So making a bigger impact and advocating for better and informed and supported lactation experiences really means that you are going to make that impact in the way that works best for you. So while it might seem very obvious that if you are a healthcare provider, you're going to be able to do that very easily. You're going to be able to just work that into your actual work. So if that seems like a very obvious way, but maybe if you're not a healthcare provider or a lactation care provider, you might think, how in the world is this going to be useful for me? So I want you to think about for a second, go back to that question that I asked you earlier. Do you want to feel like you aren't able to help people that you know? Do you want to feel like you don't know where to find information when people have questions? Do you want to feel like you don't have a purpose for all of the passion that you have and all of the personal experiences or your unique voice? Do you want to feel like there's nowhere to put that? Or do you want to know exactly where you can focus that, exactly where you can make your attention go? So as you move forward making choices here, I think that one of the things you can really think about is that this is a learning experience and you are a person who loves to learn. So for as long as you are interested in this topic and you are a member of this group, you will be continuing to learn. So as you kind of go through this, think about ways that you'll be able to impact the people that you know. Here's your screen again with your ways to enroll. If you have questions, please reach out on Facebook. You can also find me everywhere else on Twitter and Instagram and all of those places. You can always email me as well. My email is christinestorica@lactationtraininglab.com. If you know me, you can reach out anytime. I would be more than happy to talk to you about this opportunity, but I do want you to know that this is a limited time opportunity. The doors are going to close next week. I don't want you to miss out on it. So I don't want you to delay. I don't want you to wait around and think about this for too long. Please come back and watch this again if you need it. Reach out to me if you have questions as soon as you can so that we can get those answered and you can figure out if this is the right opportunity for you. And let me know if you've watched this webinar and you're unsure if you want to be a member, but you really like what I had to say about making a bigger impact. I'd love to hear your feedback on the things that I shared here in this webinar. I'd love to know how you feel about that. And if you have an idea for a different way that people could get this information or a different way that people can make an impact, I would absolutely love to hear from you. I'd love to know your feedback about this webinar and be able to help in another way if there's something else that you can think of. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to watch and listen to all of this. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate your passion. I respect your passion and your unique voice. And I hope that this opportunity is the way that you are going to be able to share that unique voice and move forward with purpose in this world. Thanks so much.